Each morning, before the world fully wakes, life offers us a quiet invitation, a whisper beneath the noise, asking us to lean a little closer to our own becoming. In that stillness, we find that happiness isn't a prize waiting at the end of some distant road, but a practice, a gentle stretching of the soul toward the light already inside us. Every challenge, every pause, every fragile moment of doubt is not an interruption, but a note in the great symphony we were born into. We are not separate from the rhythm of existence. We are woven into it, moving with its divine tempo, carried by its unseen currents. And when we push ourselves to be happy, even in small ways, we're really choosing to participate more fully in that cosmic dance, to honor the quiet miracle of being here at all. And so we begin, standing inside the beautiful truth that our journey is not random. It's written with intention, and we are its living, breathing design. There is a kind of power that doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need to. It lives in the quiet spaces of a woman's inner life. The parts no one sees, but everyone feels. And when she learns to sit there, really sit there, in that deep knowing of who she is, something remarkable happens. The world can no longer convince her she is less than the truth she carries. That's the kind of strength that silences any narcissist, not through force, not through argument, but through the steady, unshakable presence of someone who finally recognizes her own soul. Because self, knowing it's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's not about rehearsed speeches or polished confidence. It's more like remembering a song you once loved, a song you forgot you wrote. It rises from the inside, soft at first, then steady, then powerful enough to drown out any voice that ever tried to tell you who you were allowed to be. A narcissist depends on distortion, on making a woman question her memory, her intuition, her very nature. They thrive in the fog, but a woman who knows herself, she brings the sun. She walks into the room with a clarity that says, I may bend, but I do not break, and I certainly do not lose myself in your shadows. That kind of clarity doesn't just disrupt manipulation, it dissolves it, because you can't confuse someone who has already done the work of meeting herself. And that work isn't always glamorous. Sometimes it's sitting alone after a long day, feeling the weight of old hurts and choosing, just for a moment, to breathe deeper instead of shrinking smaller. Sometimes it's looking at the version of herself she used to be, the one who explained too much, tolerated too much, gave too much, and whispering, I understand why you did, but we're not living there anymore. Sometimes it's choosing silence, not because she has nothing to say, but because she finally understands that her peace is a place worth protecting. Self, knowing becomes her compass. It tells her which voices to welcome and which to release. It tells her when to walk away without apology. It tells her that love should not ask her to disappear in order to be seen. And with each step in that knowing, she moves from surviving to living, from reacting to creating, from being defined to defining herself. And the narcissist, someone who feeds on doubt, finds nothing to hold on to, because she no longer hands over the pieces of herself that once made her feel small. She stands in the fullness of her truth, and that truth is louder than any lie ever whispered to her. In the end, herself, knowing, becomes a kind of quiet thunder, steady, grounded, and impossible to silence. There comes a moment in every woman's life when she realizes that protecting her peace isn't selfish, it's sacred. It's not about shutting people out. It's about honoring the quiet truth that her spirit is not a place for chaos to set up camp. Boundaries, real boundaries, aren't built from anger or fear. They're shaped from wisdom. They say, I know what nourishes me, and I know what drains me, and I choose myself. And that choice, right there, is where a narcissist starts to lose their grip. Because a narcissist needs access to your time, your energy, your openness, your empathy. They feed on the parts of you that are generous and giving, but a boundary says, you don't get to walk in here without respect. And respect, well, that's the one currency a narcissist can't counterfeit. You see, a boundary isn't a wall. Walls keep everything out, boundaries simply guide what's allowed in. They're like a front door with a lock, not to cage you in, but to make sure only the right energy steps over the threshold. And when a woman steps into this understanding, she starts to feel her power in a new way. Not loud, not hard, just steady, just sure. She learns that no is not a confrontation, it's self-care. She learns that she doesn't need to justify why she needs rest, why she needs silence, why she needs space. She doesn't need permission to protect her joy, or to walk away from what pulls her out of alignment. She realizes that people who truly love her will honor her boundaries because they honor her, and those who don't, well, they reveal themselves long before she ever has to. A narcissist thrives in environments without boundaries, places where they can shape the narrative, twist the truth, tug at insecurities. But when a woman draws a line from a place of clarity, not anger, she creates a barrier the narcissist can't slip through, because manipulation can only survive where confusion lives and boundaries clear the fog. There's something beautiful about a woman who knows how to say, "This is where you end and I begin." She doesn't slam the door. She simply stands in her truth, and the truth itself becomes the guard at the gate. She learns that she doesn't need to argue to be understood, and she doesn't need to bend to be loved. She doesn't need to shrink so someone else can feel big. Her boundaries teach others how to treat her, and they teach her how to treat herself. And with every boundary she honors, she steps deeper into her own strength. She becomes a living reminder that serenity is worth fighting for and self-respect is worth protecting. Because at the end of the day, boundaries don't push people away, they pull your true self forward. There's a certain kind of wisdom that settles into a woman when she finally stops apologizing for what she sees and starts trusting the truth that rises in her chest. Emotional clarity isn't about being unemotional, it's about being honest. Honest with what she feels, what she knows, and what her spirit refuses to ignore. And when a woman reaches that place, that clear, steady place, she becomes nearly impossible to manipulate. Because a narcissist can only twist what you're unsure of. They can't play games with a mind that's awake and a heart that's paying attention. Clarity is like stepping outside after a storm and realizing the world didn't end. It just needed to be seen without the rain. It's the moment she understands that her emotions aren't weaknesses. They're guiding lights. They tell her when something is off, when something is real, when something is trying to pull her away from herself. And once she stops dismissing those signals, she starts moving differently. She stops accepting explanations that don't feel right. She stops shrinking her instincts because someone else is uncomfortable with her knowing. A narcissist depends on confusion, mixing truth with half. Truth, kindness with cruelty, affection with punishment. They rely on her doubting her own perceptions so they can rewrite the story. But when she gains emotional clarity, she begins to see the pattern, the cycle, the dance they keep trying to lead her into. And instead of following, she steps back. Instead of questioning herself, she questions the behavior. Instead of drowning in the noise, she listens to the stillness underneath it. That's where the real strength lies, in the stillness. In the quiet honesty that whispers, "You know what you felt." When she honors that voice, the fog lifts. She sees the intention behind the words, not just the words. She recognizes the difference between love and control, between support and possession. And once she sees clearly, she can't unsee. That's when things shift, because emotional clarity doesn't make her colder. It makes her wiser. It helps her respond, not react. It lets her speak from truth, not fear. It reminds her that her emotions are not liabilities to be used against her. They are signals designed to protect her. And every time she listens, she reinforces her own strength. A narcissist cannot survive in the presence of someone who sees through the performance. And that's exactly what her clarity gives her, the ability to see the person behind the mask, not with judgment, not with anger, just with truth, and truth, spoken softly, lived honestly, held firmly, is louder than any manipulation. When a woman becomes clear about who she is and what she deserves, she doesn't need to argue anymore. Her clarity becomes the answer. There's a kind of courage we don't talk about enough, the courage to be still, not to freeze, not to endure chaos silently, but to stand rooted in who you are while the world around you tries to pull you into its noise. Stillness has been misunderstood for so long. People think it's weakness, passivity, a lack of fight. But real stillness, the kind born from truth and clarity, is one of the strongest positions a woman can take. Because when she stops reacting to every tug, every tone, every trap, she becomes untouchable. A narcissist wants motion, your motion. They want you spinning, explaining, defending, doubting, running in circles around their confusion. They want you exhausted so they can claim control. But the moment you decide, I'm not moving from my truth, the whole game shifts. That stillness says, I don't need to argue. I don't need to match your volume. I don't need to dance to a rhythm that isn't mine. And trust me, nothing disarms manipulation faster than a woman who no longer reacts on command. Stillness isn't about silence for silence's sake. It's about presence, a deep, steady presence that says you're no longer available for chaos. You're no longer available for emotional tug-of-war. You're no longer available for anything that demands you abandon yourself just to keep the peace. In that stillness, you start to hear the truth more clearly. Your intuition gets louder, your discernment sharpens. You begin to see exactly what's happening, and you choose your response with intention instead of instinct. And let's be honest, stillness takes strength. Strength to breathe instead of explode. Strength to observe instead of defend. Strength to say, I see what's happening and I'm not stepping into it. That's not weakness, that is mastery. That is emotional and spiritual discipline. That is a woman standing tall without raising a single decibel. A narcissist can't operate in that environment. They need reaction, they need friction, they need a spark to ignite the drama they feed on. But when you refuse to give them that spark, when you hold your center, the fire goes out. They can't twist calm. They can't spin clarity. They can't manipulate a woman who refuses to be moved from her ground. And the beautiful part, stillness doesn't just protect you. It elevates you. It allows you to walk away with dignity instead of chaos. It gives you the chance to choose peace on purpose. It lets you conserve your energy for the life you're building, not the battles someone else is trying to drag you into. It reminds you that your power doesn't live in your reaction. It lives in your restraint, your awareness, your grounded presence. Because when you stand in stillness, you stand in truth, and truth doesn't need to shout. There comes a moment when a woman realizes that holding on isn't strength sometimes. It's the very thing keeping her from rising. Detachment isn't coldness. It isn't shutting down. It isn't pretending not to care. It's understanding that caring doesn't mean sacrificing yourself, and love doesn't mean losing your sense of direction. Detachment is the quiet decision to stop handing your peace to people who haven't earned it. It's the shift from how do I fix this to how do I honor myself. And that shift, it changes everything. A narcissist depends on your attachment, your hope, your loyalty, your desire to understand. They lean on the part of you that wants to make things better, even when it's draining you dry. They count on the fact that you'll try one more time, explain one more time, forgive one more time. But when you detach, not in anger, but in truth, they lose the emotional rope they've been pulling on. Suddenly, the reactions they're fishing for don't come. The guilt they try to plant doesn't take root. The chaos they stir doesn't reach you. You're still there, but you're not *available* in the same way. And that shift is powerful. Detachment isn't walking away without feeling. It's walking away without abandoning yourself. It's the strength to say, I can love you, I can care about you, but I won't lose myself inside your storm. It's choosing peace even when part of you still wants to hope. It's choosing clarity even when confusion feels familiar. It's choosing your future, not their pattern. There's a freeing kind of breath a woman takes when she finally releases the weight that was never hers to carry. When she stops trying to decode mixed signals, stops validating her own worth through someone else's inconsistency, stops bending herself into smallness just to keep the peace. In that release, she rises not above anyone else, but above the version of herself that believed she couldn't. And here's the beautiful truth. Detachment isn't the end of compassion. It's the beginning of wisdom. It's seeing the situation for what it is, not what you wish it would be. It's stepping out of the illusion and into your own power. It's letting go of what hurts while holding on to what heals. A narcissist loses power the moment you stop giving them emotional access, because they can only control what you cling to. They can only manipulate what you're afraid to lose. But when you detach, when you say, I choose me, suddenly they're left holding an empty script with no audience. The performance ends, the spell breaks, and you walk forward lighter, clearer, stronger, ready to pour your energy into the life you're meant to live, not the chaos someone else is trying to keep you in. There's a moment quiet, almost sacred, when a woman finally looks at herself without the filters of who she's been told she is, and sees the truth of her own worth. Not the worth she earned or proved or fought for, the worth she was born with. That moment changes the way she moves through the world. Because oneself, love stops being a theory and becomes a lived experience. Everything around her shifts. She starts treating herself like someone who matters. She starts speaking to herself like someone she cares about. She starts choosing like someone who believes she was crafted with intention, and that kind of love. It's unbreakable, not because she thinks she's perfect, no, perfection isn't the point. It's because she knows she's valuable, even with her scars, even with her doubts, even with the parts of her she's still learning to embrace. She finally understands that love doesn't start outside of her. It begins right there in her own chest, in the way she honors herself when the world tries to pull her in every direction. A narcissist loses every ounce of power the moment she returns to that truth. Because love is the one thing they can't twist. They can challenge your confidence, distract your attention, shake your emotions, but they cannot break a woman who knows her own soul. They can't convince you that you're unworthy when you've already learned how deeply you matter. They can't dim your light when you've become the one guarding the flame. When a woman loves herself, her choices change. She no longer accepts crumbs because she knows she deserves a seat at the table. She stops rationalizing mistreatment because she refuses to betray herself just to keep someone else comfortable. She becomes softer where she once hardened, stronger where she once bent, clearer where she once doubted. She becomes her own anchor, and that kind of love isn't loud. It doesn't need applause. It shows up in small, consistent ways. Choosing rest, choosing truth, choosing peace, choosing herself even when it feels unfamiliar. It's in the way she forgives herself for the times she stayed too long, cared too much, or believed too deeply in someone who wasn't capable of meeting her there. It's in the way she releases the shame she never deserved to carry. It's in the way she steps into the next chapter, not as a wounded version of who she was, but as the healed and healing woman she is becoming. Self-love becomes her armor and her light, her protection and her compass. It shields her without hardening her. It strengthens her without stealing her softness. It allows her to walk through the world with a quiet confidence that says, I know who I am, and I will not be moved from that. A narcissist cannot silence that. because a woman who truly loves herself cannot be controlled, cannot be diminished, cannot be undone.